Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. I'm so excited to be here today to talk to you guys about books. I have been an avid book lover ever since I can remember. I can still remember the first book that I learned to read with, which is called The Sky is Full of Stars. And ever since then, I have just been a complete bookworm, and you would always find me with a book, especially as a teenager. But by the time I went to college, I felt like I had read every single YA novel and I was just bored, and so I stopped reading fiction. And I was going into college, so I felt like it was time for me to pick up some more adult books, some nonfiction, self-help books, and some like psychology books. So I really started to delve more into those genres of books. And recently, in the past few months, I have reconnected with fiction again, and I'm so excited because I feel like fiction is just a whole nother world. It opens you up to like new experiences. And as they say, a reader lives 1,000 lives, and I think that's definitely true. I'm gonna be talking about the 3 books that I read this summer, in the order that I read them. And they were The Vanishing Half, It Ends With Us, and Verity. So 2 Colleen Hoover books, but I'm very excited to give my opinions on these. I did read Where the Crawdads Sing, but that was before summer, so I'm not going to do a review on that one. And plus I don't remember enough really to give a great review, but I'm going to go ahead and start with The Vanishing Half. So The Vanishing Half, as you can see right here, was written by Bennett, and it was one of the New York Times 10 best books of the year for the year it was written, which was 2020. And basically it's a story about 2 twin sisters, without giving too much away because I definitely don't want to have like spoilers in my reviews if I can help it. But it's a story of 2 twin sisters who, as they grow up, end up taking 2 completely different paths in life. One kind of taking advantage of like a privilege that she has, and she completely alienates herself from her family so that she can, live life the way that she feels she's meant to live it. And I mean, you can get that within reading the back of the cover and the first few pages. So I haven't given away too much there. It's a very gut-wrenching story about, the impact that our choices have, not only on ourselves, but on the people around us. And I mean, I was like, I don't even know the words to say, but like I could not stop turning the page. This book was like the book that really kickstarted me getting back into fiction. And it was just so good. And I actually had 2 parts of the books. So my habit is to like dog ear the bottom of pages where there are quotes or like things that characters have said that I like really love. I do want to get into like using the little flags, but for now I have these 2 things dog-eared. So I'm not gonna say too much about the characters, but I just thought these things were like super thought-provoking. So that was the thrill of youth, the idea that you could be anyone. That was what had captured her in the charm shop all those years ago. Then adulthood came, your choices solidifying, and you realized that everything you are had been set in motion years before. The rest was aftermath. So she understood why her daughter was searching for a self, and she even blamed herself for it. So I want to say like a few months ago, because I was married recently in May, but I want to say that I had this awakening and like this epiphany about how our choices completely shape our lives. Of course, there are some choices that are more permanent than others, but I just had this realization that every choice that you make today impacts your tomorrow. And so reading that in this book was like, oh my God, yeah, like who we are, we kind of solidified it with the choices that we made years ago. And like, at this point in life, you can choose to become someone else. But just to say that who you are today is because of choices that you made years ago, which is like mind-blowing. So that was a really good quote that spoke to me. And then this other one was actually about marriage. So as a newlywed, I read this and I was like, dang. But it's like, when you married someone, you promised to love every person he would be. He promised to love every person she had been. And here they were, still trying, even though the past and the future were both mysteries. It's so interesting because it's saying like, despite all that has happened between this married couple, you know, they aren't who they were when they first got married, but they chose to love each other through it anyway, and I just love that. So a little sentimental, but yeah, The Vanishing Half, I will give this book a 5-star rating. It was incredible. I loved it, and I think there is like a spin-off called The Mothers that I'm very interested in reading, so that is on my TBR list. All right, let's cross over into Hoover territory. So Colleen Hoover, never heard of her before, even though I think she's been writing for a while. Like, I think this book was written in 2016, or at least published in 2016, and that was probably right around the time that I stopped reading fiction. And plus, like, this isn't a YA novel, I don't think, so I would have like never came across it. But I just recently over the summer started reading her books, and you know, this book was very hyped up on Instagram, so I was like, okay, let me read it. I need a new book to read anyway. Let me see what this is about. And honestly, definitely the first few chapters, I want to say like 1/4 to half of the book was extremely difficult for me to get through. I want to say like 1/4 of it. I just felt like it was so cringy. There were so many lines that were so cringy. And honestly, I've heard a lot of people comparing it to a Wattpad story, and I would say the same. Like, the level and the quality of writing definitely was giving Wattpad, and I like have never read a book that's been published that was written like that personally, because I'm very picky about the books that I read. So I was very surprised that this book was getting hyped up, and I was like, okay, like Instagram has reached new levels and TikTok has reached new levels of lying. Like, this is crazy that people are trying to sit here and act like this book is good. But I want to say about halfway in, it really picked up for me. There's definitely a turning point in the story. And just to talk about some of the things that are cringy, some of the dialogue was cringy. I think that the characters moved very fast and were very blunt in a way that wasn't natural. Like, some of the things that they were saying at like different points in the relationship, like, people just don't say to each other, at least to my knowledge. So I just felt like it was like not believable in some ways. The main character's name is Lily Bloom, and she opens a flower shop, right? And so I was like, okay, all right. So, you know, it's a love story, and there are definitely two people that she is torn between. It picked up about halfway through for me, like I said before, and yeah, I thought that by the end, I was completely like a mess. Like, the last bit, like not the epilogue, but the last bit of the book really tore me apart, because the book did get deeper and did delve into some more serious topics. So I would definitely say like a warning for domestic abuse. So yeah, that when it started to get a little deeper, I was more interested, and by the end I was like gut-wrenched. So yeah, it's a love story. Like I said, there's 2 love interests, and yeah, I mean, I think that the end was very empowering, so I really enjoyed that. I would give this book a 4.5 out of 5, which is a high rating. But the reason that I give it that is because despite the writing quality, especially in the beginning, I thought about this book for days after and was so sad. So that's why I give this book such a high rating, because I think in the end she did what needed to be done. So we're gonna give it that. Okay, and the last book that I'm talking about today is called Verity. Okay, everyone was telling me to read this book, and at the same time, everyone was telling me that their minds were messed up by the end. They were like, I stopped reading for a while after I finished it. Like, there were just these crazy like attitudes towards the book, and it was like a love-hate relationship. So I was so intrigued, and I will say that this book was definitely not as cringy as It Ends With Us was. The writing was just a tad bit more mature, so it was easier to get through, and honestly this was a page turner for me. So this is about an author who is asked to come on as a co-author for a very famous author named Verity Crawford, and the main character's name is loml. So we get to see how this situation plays out. I don't remember how much is in the back of this, but there's like definitely a reason that she is asked to come on as a co-author for Verity Crawford, and the story is like a thriller. I would call it a thriller. I was kind of on edge throughout most of it just because I knew something crazy was going to happen. So this was a good one, but even though it was a good one, I give it like a 3.5 out of 5. Like, even though it was a good thriller, like I actually liked it ends with us better, just because when I got to the end of this book I was kind of pissed. Like, it was good, but also I was like, really? So yeah. And I do want to say, like, the difference between The Vanishing Half and these two Colleen Hoover books that I've read, there seems to be more depth in like The Vanishing Half than Colleen Hoover's books. I think Colleen Hoover's books never make me really want to highlight anything, which is like not usual, because usually when I'm reading a fiction book, like I'm dog-earing pages and highlighting or underlining stuff, but I just think her characters don't have a deep enough inner monologue, and they don't really like self-evaluate or, you know, muse on life events enough that they have anything that you take away like and ponder upon too deeply. It's just like a good story and a fun read, basically. So yeah, that is my opinion on that. So these are the 3 books that I've read this summer. I of course have my September list geared up, ready to go, some of which include Malibu Rising. What else is on my September list? I wrote specifically what I want to read for September. Okay, so The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, The Silent Patient. I want to read The Handmaid's Tale. So I watched The Handmaid's Tale, and season 5 is coming out in September. I think it's like September 5th or something, or 8th. So that really has sparked me to want to read the book. I want to read Things We Never Got Over, and then, as I said, I want to read Malibu Rising. So I'm very excited. I am reading a nonfiction book right now called Atomic Habits. That's kind of like a background read for me. I don't know if anybody else does that. And maybe I have like a bunch of like self-help books that I'm reading to help me navigate, like, you know, being in my 20s. So maybe I'll do a book review about a few of those books. I do also have a few books that I want to reread. They are YA novels that I read when I was younger. So like the Selection series and maybe the Mortal Instruments, just like I really want to like read them back again and see if they were as good as I remember. But yeah, so that's my plans. So I'm very excited to talk about my September reads when I get through them. And if you have any suggestions for books that I should read, please leave them down below. And let me know what you think or thought about the books I talked about today. So see you in the next one.